All right, so Paul, I have to start. You're just an incredible entrepreneur with so many ideas for how to make the world a better place. Starting back in the day with Ancestry.com, what was the inspiration for actually starting that?
I mean, I never intended to be a business person, Alexander. I think I had a really bad opinion of business people for most of my childhood. I don't think anyone sat me down and said, "Hey, Paul, business people are evil." But somehow my mom was a school teacher, my dad was a professor. He built software that was used by 100 of the largest manufacturers in the United States. So he was consulting for Boeing and Westinghouse and Lockheed Martin. And I just saw him traveling, but I saw what he did in the research laboratory and in the classroom as world changing. And the teachings, the way he taught people about taxonomies and classification systems and manufacturing processes that are super efficient and decision engines or decision tables, decision trees. He was just a genius, my dad. So I didn't ever want to be in business. And Ancestry was kind of an accident. It was my second company. The first company
Hmm.
was really inspired by a talk I heard from a university president, Jeffrey Holland. He was the president of Brigham Young University. And my dad was at a faculty conference receiving an award called the Carl G. Mazer Research Award. So my dad was honored as the top research professor in the university in 1988. And it was at that event that President Holland gave this 1 hour talk about knowledge and truth and gathering it all and making knowledge and truth available to everybody. And my brother had started a search engine company, and I had, anyway, I love books, I love libraries, and I started a master's degree in library science. But if you think about knowledge and books, there's 130, 140 million books that have been published that we know of. And if you know something from a book and then apply it, you get all these benefits. And people that are ignorant, I think Mark Twain said, people who don't read are no better off than people who can't read. And I would say if you don't read great books, you're no better off than people who can't read, because there's great truths and great principles and great stories from throughout history, but unless you're lucky enough to have those books recommended to you, you're not going to get any benefits from the knowledge, the collective wisdom and knowledge of humanity. So Ancestry was my second company. My first company attempted to put all the world's best books on CD-ROM using the powerful keyword search engine that Folio had built in the 80s. And so I was born into this family. It was the perfect family to get me into a tech role. I was a part-time coder for Folio, which was my brother's search engine company. My best friend and I decided to build this CD-ROM publishing company, and within a few years we were doing millions of dollars in revenue, despite all the mistakes we made. We hired all the wrong people. We had to lay people off every year because we couldn't make our payments. Anyway, I was a terrible entrepreneur. When I went to Philadelphia in May of 96 to be honored as one of the 500 fastest growing companies in the United States, I was completely blown away, Alexander, by the hundreds of people that were there. These were the coolest people I had ever been around in my life. These were the dreamers. They were creating companies. They were pursuing visions and creating jobs for everybody else. And so my opinion, my previous negative opinion about business people completely shifted in May of 96 when I fell
Hmm.
in love with entrepreneurs, fell in love with entrepreneurship, and from that moment on said, Paul, you better read a lot of books and talk to a lot of experts because you're a terrible entrepreneur. You've got to become a world-class entrepreneur. And I tried to make up for lost time over the next, many years. But yeah, that was my entry into business was accidental. Thankfully, the CD-ROM team that helped us build a multi-million dollar revenue generating engine, when we sold that company to a big publisher, we were able to take the same people and the same skill set, and instead of publishing electronic books and libraries on CD-ROM, we started putting all the world's genealogical records on the internet. So same process of prepping data and publishing it and making it searchable, but instead of shipping out disks to 100,000 customers every year, we would start posting new data on the internet every day, make it searchable, and pretty soon millions of people were using Ancestry.com as the best website ever to find their ancestors and discover their heritage.
So there's a lot to dig into here, but actually, I want to go back to that experience in Philadelphia that led you to decide you wanted to be a better entrepreneur and put you on this path. Was that the Inc. 5000 that you're referring to?
It was the Inc. 500 because they hadn't come out with the Inc. 5000 until a few years later. But yes, we were 454th out of 500, so we barely squeezed in. But it was a life-changing experience to be with that group and to have speakers teaching us principles about branding and marketing and customer service. I loved the things I learned, but most of all, I loved the people that were there who were trying to be successful and build companies that, like I said, would employ everybody else.
So this really gets at the core of what we're doing in the Liberty Ventures Network, which is why I want to double click, because it's so easy when you're a founder or really in any leadership role in a business to feel isolated and alone and to just chug away at your own project. But being around other business leaders to not only learn from them, but get inspired and to be able to develop ideas is so critical to leveling up one's own leadership. And it sounds like that's what you experienced at that Inc. 500 meeting.
It was the beginning of tons of experiences like that. Right after that, I joined the Utah Valley Entrepreneurial Forum. And I'll never forget going to a talk by Eric Ruff. He had started a company called PowerQuest, and it was massively successful. And he gave a talk about the 14 things that caused his first company to fail. And in his second company, he did everything he could to minimize the risk of failure in these 14 ways. And it was phenomenally valuable for an entrepreneur that had also made lots of mistakes. So yes, I think the community of people being brought into Liberty Ventures, this network of builders, this network of investors, is so incredibly important. And your vision to scale it and to help everybody, like you said, not be lonely in their journey, but to connect with like-minded people who believe that capitalism is the best way to unlock value creation for everybody on earth, that other systems and forms of government and other economic forms do not create that spark, that motivation, that competition that leads to massive growth in the pies that everybody gets to share. I remember going to Yugoslavia in an international engineering conference that my dad attended. I think it was 1988. And that was Eastern European. They were not part of the Soviet bloc. They were kind of an independent, kind of partly Western and partly communism. And it was kind of their own version. But I was stunned by the people that I interacted with in 1988 in Yugoslavia. It was not an alive, creative, vibrant economy. I remember going to Poland in 2006 or 7, where the Polish economy, after Lech Walesa and after capitalism took hold, was like super exciting. Lots of founders, lots of people moving back from Chicago to Poland because there was growth, there was creativity, there was unleashing of economic energy. Poland is an amazing country, but Yugoslavia was in the kind of dark ages still. And just the lack of life on people's faces, just the kind of depressing gloominess that I experienced in the 7 days that I was there. Then I fly home through Frankfurt to Atlanta. I get to the Atlanta airport. I wanted to kiss the ground in the United States of America. I walked up to the ticket counter and the woman just greeted me with a smile, with her Southern hospitality. And I'm like, the people in Eastern Europe are under this gloomy, horrible system of government that just sucks the life out of people and does not reward creativity and innovation. And I came back and I just sensed a complete difference in 1988, landing in Atlanta, just being so grateful that I live in this country where freedom allows people to decide what you're going to do with your life and go build and go hire and imagine what's possible. So anyway, I'm grateful for liberty, and I'm grateful for freedom that allows people, for the most part in this country, to pursue their dreams. Although I think we've shifted way, way too far towards government, being in charge of everything and taking care of everybody in kind of that socialist bent. And I think the pendulum has swung backwards, and I'm sensing a new awakening, especially with young people, that, hey, maybe the big brother government has gotten too bloated and too inefficient. And now we're seeing evidence of that every day. And I'm like, this is a good time to be in the United States of America. And I think rebirth of liberty and freedom and opportunities for innovation with AI now enabling almost any startup to go from idea to build, to scale, to exit. I think it's the best time to be alive if you are an entrepreneur. And I'm excited for Liberty Ventures to connect all these highly energetic, enthusiastic people together so that we can share this journey together and share tips and advice and help each other avoid the landmines and experience the joy of the journey as an entrepreneur.
I couldn't agree more. There are so many opportunities to start businesses now that didn't exist before, and this is just such an exciting time. And let's dig into that in a moment, but I want to go back because it sounds like you didn't start out supporting capitalism. You didn't start out planning to be in business. And what was it that changed for you? Was it this trip to Eastern Europe? Was it accidentally starting a business? What led to this new way of thinking for you?
So I grew up with the best history teacher in the state of Utah. His name was D. Allred, and I had pre-AP U.S. history my junior year and AP U.S. history my senior year. So I actually love the founding fathers. I love the Constitution. I love the limited enumerated powers of the federal government. I love federalism. I love local and state. Like, I grew up appreciating our heritage, but I didn't understand economically how that heritage of limited government and freedom had allowed businesses to build and to create the most prosperous nation in the history of the world. I hadn't really connected the economic system to the political system until later. And I was a Russian major in college, so I studied Russian literature, Russian history. I wanted to become a PhD in Soviet studies and become one of the world's best Kremlinologists or Sovietologists. So I did find it fascinating that 12 people on this Politburo could control a country that had, at that time, 250 million people and a massive economy, and a tiny group of people basically controlled the vast resources of the Soviet Union. And so I think over time, not only did my experiences start changing, where I started learning about capital markets and free enterprise and building great companies and scaling great companies, but I got to see up close how the wealth creation engine is the very thing that pays the taxes that allow great schools to be built. And so I don't know. It's just been a really interesting journey, but I definitely studied American history a lot. I contrast that with the Soviet approach and kind of just authoritarian governments in general. They just never inspire people to go be autonomous and creative and have agency to serve others through their business ventures. Every business that has to succeed in a competitive marketplace has to provide more value through its products and services than it charges for. And so there's this built-in need for efficiency. And that means lots of hard work and lots of testing and experimenting. And if a company doesn't deliver value to customers, it dies. It's like a Darwinian process that weeds out the underperformers. Well, in a socialist government or in a top-down controlled economy, that doesn't even matter. Those forces of improvement do not exist because people want this entity to succeed and give it as much money. And so it's not producing value. It's just moving value from one pocket to another based on the arbitrary whims of the ruling class, whether that's a single totalitarian dictator or whether that's an oligarchy or whether that's an elite ruling class. But bottom line is, everybody is a human being with sovereign, inalienable rights and talents and gifts that have been endowed by their creator. Not just the country. We have been endowed with rights, inalienable rights from our creator, but gifts and talents that you can identify and organize groups of people to provide incredible value for society and for customers as well. So I just have grown to love the way that startups originate, and then I've been fortunate to have my companies have raised about 120 or 130 million dollars, and so I believe in shareholder capitalism, and people that take risks should get rewards. So I've just had a fun journey in life that was totally unexpected, and I'm still trying to learn how to be excellent at entrepreneurship.
Well, if you're still learning how to be excellent at entrepreneurship, that just emphasizes this is a constant learning process because you've already been so successful at it, and that's a great lesson already for other entrepreneurs listening here. And I love that you're so committed to these principles and are so excited about continuing the entrepreneurial journey, knowing how challenging it is. You and I have talked a number of times about some of the challenges that you faced in the past and the ways that things can go wrong. So I'm curious if there's anything that really stands out to you in how you are thinking about how to build your latest project, SOAR, which I want to get into in a moment. But what you've taken from your past experiences that are lessons you're applying now that others that are listening should think about too.
Well, I think that the big thing that's happened in the last 10, 15 years in this country is the creation of the 2012 Jobs Act, and in 2016, the SEC approved the regulations for Reg CF, crowdfunding, where you're democratizing the opportunity for people to invest in an early stage company. And so now, since 2016, billions of dollars have been raised by founders who are running campaigns, fundraising campaigns on crowdfunding platforms like WeFunder, Start Engine, Republic. We've used two of those, and we're also using one right now called Dealmaker out of Toronto. It's a private label crowdfunding platform. So for the first time since the 1930s, when the government deemed it unwise to allow unwealthy people to invest in any startup company, you have to be accredited, which means you have to be high net worth, high income. And so somehow the government decided that you're only sophisticated in making an investment choice if you're rich already. So deal flow for 80 years was really limited to high net worth, high income people. The Crowdfunding Act has now allowed hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people to invest small amounts of capital in startups that could become unicorns, that could have a tremendous exit someday, maybe an IPO or a big acquisition. So I've decided that I love crowdfunding. My company, citizenportal.ai, was honored last November as the social impact crowdfunding campaign of the year. So Alexander, citizenportal.ai is trying to strengthen our republic by giving every citizen access to what's going on at the local, state, and federal level based on what's said in every meeting and what's written about in every major government document, bills, and budgets. So AI is now transcribing tens of thousands of hours of meetings every month and writing hundreds of thousands of articles with an algorithmic feed that helps you as a citizen find out, what did my school board talk about last night? What did the city council say last week? What does the state legislature debating, and what bills are being proposed? And you get this constant news feed so that you can become informed and engaged. Now, thankfully, I didn't have to go to venture capitalists who might want to move us in a certain direction or shape the platform to their desires or build it so that it could be sold to this company or that company. And so we were able to crowdfund $1.3 million. We first raised $425,000 from 19 angel investors. And thank you, John Patoti, for being the very first angel from Santa Barbara to say yes to invest in Citizen Portal. After John and 18 others invested, then we raised crowdfunding. We got some nice endorsements from some pretty prominent folks, and $1.3 million was raised. And now Citizen Portal is raising more, but the goal of helping millions of citizens become informed and engaged is now within reach. And Citizen Portal has multiple revenue possibilities to become extremely profitable, a very successful company that does well and does good at the same time. So to me, having crowdfunding as a way to fund these companies, it attracts mission-driven funders rather than VCs who have limited partners who have to, make 1 out of 10 of their portfolio companies massive success. And so they push on every portfolio company, hoping that they can get that 1 out of 10 to have a unicorn outcome, whereas the other 9, they can discard. And I'm not saying all VCs are like that, but there are hundreds of thousands of angel investors. There are potentially millions of crowdfunders, and democratizing access to capital is a really big deal. So I'm really thankful to still be alive when this is even a possible way. The $5 million per calendar year is the SEC limit on how much you can crowdfund. There is a discussion with the SEC that maybe that should be raised to $20 million a year. And that would allow even more startups to tap into very significant crowdfunding events. There's also Reg A+, which I think is a $75 million opportunity for accredited investors to go through these funding platforms. I think your listeners should know about one super exciting company that may go public in the coming months, and that is Angel Studios, that recently raised $21 million in 10 days. Alexander, they have 150,000 shareholders. They're the most disruptive film studio in history, disruptive to the current Hollywood economics, the current Hollywood business model. They have a guild of, 20,000 people that get to vote for which films to fund. It's such a great company. And my friends Neil and Jeffrey run that, and I know you had two of them speak in your November event in September. So people like that are participating in these Liberty Ventures events, the smartest, best filmmakers in history, with a revolutionary new model to disrupt Hollywood, which needs disruption. And you're going to have thousands of people like this in your network that are all working together to improve economic outcomes for everybody through creative entrepreneurship and through funding of these ventures. I just love what you're doing, Alexander, because you are connecting all of us like-minded people to each other so that this way of life, this free market capitalism, can extend its useful life into the indefinite future.
So we're going to clip that as a promotion for Liberty Ventures going forward. I really appreciate that, Paul, but you're absolutely right. I love what Angel Studios are doing. The Harmon brothers are absolute geniuses at what they're building here, and what's really amazing is just the model for how they're doing this. Most people think of Angel Studios as perhaps being a Christian-based media company. No, it's a guild-based media company that really gets its viewers, its users, to give feedback on what they want to see, which is an ingenious model for how to create the kind of content we actually want to consume. And I love that you're highlighting there are opportunities for founders to access capital in different ways. And it's absolutely true that founders need to think about the values and the motivations behind anyone who provides capital for them. Being able to democratize access, or even perhaps find or not even raise money from others, just bootstrap as much as possible, can sometimes be the right thing for them to do instead of just going to venture capitalists from the outset.
Yeah, there are a lot more options than there were before, and I think AI changes all the past rules. I met a venture capitalist in New York a few months ago, last August, and he has been building a AI-powered venture fund, and it has made, I think, 60 investment decisions in the past 7 years, 100% decided on by AI, no human in the loop, and the first 8 companies he's invested in like 2018, 3 of them are unicorns. So he's got AI paying attention to all the signals for team quality, traction, all the metrics that you can find on the open web or through powerful subscription models that show you what sites are getting traffic and who's buying what. And so he's got all those signals coming in. And he says when he reaches out to a company founder, he says, "We've decided to invest in you. Can we invest this much money?" He doesn't require the investors to pitch his fund because the AI has already said, "Go invest in this company." Isn't that amazing that an AI, start to finish AI can exist that does the investment decisions?
It's really remarkable what AI is allowing us to do, and you're at the forefront of that as well, with SOAR developing a whole portfolio of companies that leverage AI. What you mentioned Citizen Portal already. Why don't you mention just one more before we wrap this up that people should know about?
Yeah, I think that the Workplace AI subsidiary has so much potential, because if you have AI that records every call and meeting that an entire company, maybe hundreds of people, are involved in this endeavor to serve customers, to build product, to ship product, to support those customers. As AI is transcribing every word spoken by every person in every internal and external meeting, pretty soon the AI will give you feedback on what you're doing well, what you could do better, but pretty soon agentive AI will step in and start doubling or even 10 timesing the productivity output of each person on the team. I do want to mention that Startup Scribe is the version of that scribe that is aimed at helping startups. The goal of Startup Scribe, which is part of our founder portal, would be to reduce or eliminate the chance of failure for every startup. Imagine every startup has a goal, a mission. If the AI can give you incredible super intelligence about who your competitors are and also what your potential customers want you to provide in terms of a product or service. If AI is trained on everything your customers have ever said, before they buy, after they buy, you've got customer support calls that are now recorded, transcribed, AI, super intelligence, could partner with any founding team when it's properly being used to eliminate all the risks of failure and to help you get product market fit and then the right channel sales and the right pricing. AI can help supercharge every decision you make from idea to exit. I believe there's probably about 400 things that an entrepreneur needs to learn between idea to exit. There are so many complicated things: financial, legal, HR, production, manufacturing, supply chain. There's so much to learn. And the people side of it's the most complicated of all. But imagine an AI superintelligence that knows you and your goal. It knows the people on your team and their talents. It knows your development velocity and your early traction. And the AI on a daily basis helps each person on your team do better the next day than they did the day before. And AI starts building your product roadmap, starts suggesting marketing content, starts building landing pages. Like, I think that the chance of a startup failing ought to drop to close to zero. With a founding team that's passionate and an AI superintelligence aimed at understanding where you're trying to go and helping you get there, what if millions of startups all start to grow and succeed like never before because they've got Startup Scribe AI helping them every step of the way?
I love that vision, and I'm going to add in with a network of other founders, executives, and investors who are ready to help them because they share those values. So between Startup Scribe and Liberty Ventures, we're going to work towards that together, Paul.
Love it. Let's do it.
Awesome. Let's do it. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing, Paul. Love having you in the network. Love the friendship and relationship that we've been building up.
Thanks, Alexander.